The explosion that we've seen in growth in the Lawtech market is only going to continue. We've now got to the stage where there are tangible impacts that can be seen. I've worked with some law firms who have AI tools now in use every single day. People are seeing that being evidenced, seeing the benefits, and people are willing to talk about their journeys and what the difficulties were and what the pitfalls were. So there's more of a learning base as well. People are no longer going to be frightened to test things out, because if you don't, then you are going to be left behind.
On today's Legally Speaking podcast, I'm delighted to be joined by Professor Katie Atkinson. Katie is the Associate Pro Vice Chancellor and Director of the Interdisciplinary Centre for Sustainability Research at the University of Liverpool. A professor in computer science, she has been conducting foundational and interdisciplinary research on artificial intelligence for over 20 years, publishing over 150 articles. Katie was appointed to the Artificial Intelligence Advisory Board for the European Commission for Efficiency and is one of 5 members appointed across Europe. Since 2020, Katie has served as a member of the Lawtech UK panel, a government-backed initiative to help transform the UK sector through technology. So, a very big warm welcome to the show, Katie.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me here to join you today.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the Legally Speaking podcast. And before we dive into all the amazing work that you're getting up to in and around the legal community, we do have an icebreaker question here on the Legally Speaking podcast, which is, on the scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very real, what would you rate the hit TV series Suits in terms of its reality of the law on the scale of 1 to 10 if you've seen it?
I don't watch it, so I can't give a very informed decision on that, but I'd probably go in middle of the road and say a 5.
Yep, and that's what I've given it before. And with that, we can move very swiftly on to talk all about you. So to begin with, Katie, would you mind telling our listeners a bit about your background and career journey?
Yes, I'm a Professor of Computer Science at the University of Liverpool, and I conduct academic research on foundations of AI, but specifically AI for law. So I've been doing this for about 20 years now, since I finished my PhD, and I've been working very much on the academic side, but in the last 10 years or so, I've started working a lot more with industry and with professional bodies. And as the legal tech field has flourished over the last decade, I've been doing a lot more of what you would call the translational work, taking the outputs from the academic community and translating them into real-world solutions with law firms.
Yeah, and that's why we were so keen to have you on today, because it's so relevant for the now. But I guess I want to take your mind back to sort of earlier on. Where did your interest in computer science start originally, and what made you decide to pursue a career focusing on that area?
So I've got an undergraduate degree in computer science. And when I finished that, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to move into industry or really what my dream job would be at the end of it. But then it was suggested to me to do a PhD in computer science. I was really interested in the modules that I'd taken at university on the topic of artificial intelligence. So I decided to do a deep dive into that. And in my PhD, I was studying core aspects of AI. And one of the specific application areas I looked at in my PhD was law. I published a research paper on that, went along to a conference, and then I just got more interested in the legal application side and started focusing my energies on that. And then that was the path that I followed in the rest of my research career after my PhD.
Yeah, and absolutely the right path to follow given the world that we're in now, and super interesting. So I guess as the Associate Pro Vice Chancellor and Director of the Interdisciplinary Centre for Sustainability Research at the University of Liverpool, what does your role actually involve? Tell people a little bit more about what you get up to.
So my Professor of Computer Science role is only 50% of my role. My other role is this role that you mentioned as Director of our new Interdisciplinary Centre for Sustainability Research. And that's recognising the importance of doing interdisciplinary research, not just in law. I do interdisciplinary research across other boundaries as well. And we want to get more people involved in this. Traditionally, in universities, people sit within their own disciplines, but now there's definitely a recognition that different skill sets are needed, different expert knowledge is needed to be able to tackle some of the big real-world problems that we see. And they're very much articulated in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So the focus of the centre that I'm now director of is getting together interdisciplinary teams to be able to tackle some projects that make tangible progress with UN Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah, and absolutely, and we fully support that here on the Legally Speaking podcast. And something else that we try to do is to try and simplify things and reduce the overwhelm, particularly with complex things or advanced things that are going on in the world. And you're conducting, I understand, foundational and, as you mentioned there, interdisciplinary research on artificial intelligence, and been doing so for over 20 years. Would you mind explaining to our listeners the difference between foundational and perhaps interdisciplinary research on AI specifically?
Sure. So foundational research is very much on what do we need to do to advance the field of AI, not necessarily with a specific application in mind. So you might say a lot of the work on natural language processing that has, you can see nowadays in the chatbots that we have in the generative AI models, that's what you would call foundational research. How do we develop new techniques, new methods, new algorithms that will drive forward the capabilities of AI? Now that's rather different to starting from an interdisciplinary perspective. With law, if you want to start by building an AI tool specifically for law, you have to understand the challenges that are specific to law. And that's why collaboration is really important. We talk a lot about co-creation. If you want to build an interdisciplinary application, you have to have the people who are the domain experts in the room at the start being able to give their expert knowledge, and then you can combine to tackle that together.
Yeah, and I always say collaboration is domination, and you reference that there, and I think it's so important. But the areas of research you're doing are fascinating. So obviously that includes, again, I understand, sort of computational models of argument, AI and law. So, with those models of argument, how do they connect AI and law? Tell us a bit more, go a bit deeper.
So you're right, I do research on what's called computational models of argument. That's the academic label, if you like, that we put on this field. How I explain it to a more generalist audience is really what we call explainable AI now. So it's building AI tools where if the AI software gives you an output or a recommendation, it can explain the reasoning that was undertaken in order to reach that conclusion or that recommendation. Now, I work on argumentation, which is looking at how people engage in debates, how they exchange arguments, how they try to persuade one another about what to believe or what the best course of action is. And obviously a lot of that happens in the legal field. There's a lot of situations where there are debates and there are arguments going on. So I'm interested in how we can develop computational models of those so that we can build AI programs that can engage in the automated exchange of arguments. And then when a conclusion is reached by the AI system, it can explain why it accepted one line of reasoning and not some other line of reasoning.
Fascinating stuff. I'm really kind of enjoying this because this is definitely where the puck is going. And, we've got a whole range of listeners, from those entering the law. Obviously, those have been in the profession for a long time. And, I'm sure this will be raising a few eyebrows in a good way and from a sort of educational and, as I say, where that puck is going, which is where we always want to have the conversations on the show. I want to talk about Lawtech UK now, because since 2020, you've served as a member of the Lawtech UK panel, a government-backed initiative. So for those who are unfamiliar, could you explain more about Lawtech UK's mission?
So Lawtech UK was set up to really turbocharge the Lawtech ecosystem in the UK. It's backed by the UK Ministry of Justice, and it's meant to provide some strategic oversight to the UK to help the startup community, to help founders who are looking to find their way through unfamiliar territory, to support into scale up as well, to provide education programs, and to bring together the collaboration piece and mentoring as well, so people who've done this before so that they can support others on that startup journey, and we can benefit the Lawtech UK system in the whole of the UK.
I can absolutely, vouch for Lawtech UK, and I sit on the board of a couple of legal techs, one being Case Guru, and had some really good experiences with all the great work that's being done there. So from, again, I think it's April 2023, Lawtech UK has been managed by Codebase and Legal Geek on behalf of the Ministry of Justice, as you sort of briefly referenced. So, as a member of the panel, then, can you share some of the initiatives you're currently working on or excited to be working on?
So there's a really big education program, and it's aimed at startups who are on different stages of the journey. We've got the startup education, the scale up that I mentioned. So mentorship is really important. I think we're now at a tally of 89 startups who've been supported. We have a mentor pool that's got over 60 people in it, and they come from a range of different backgrounds. founders of unicorn firms, successful founders who've either grown their business or exited the market, people working in law firms, people in the investment landscape. So we want to give mentorship to people, we want to give education programs, and ultimately we want to help with adoption as well.
Yeah, and that's key, isn't it? I think through that education, naturally, you're going to see higher levels of adoption in the right facet as well. And that's why we're really keen to share, really helpful information that people are in, esteemed roles like yourself doing such good work. So we had the previous chair of Lawtech UK, Christina Blacklaws, come on to the show previously, and highly encourage guests, listeners to go back and listen to her episode. And she said, Lawtech UK is vital and a unique platform for discussion, innovation, thought leadership, and growth. So from your perspective, what shifts have you seen in the legal sector by adopting technology, and how is AI being utilized to further the law?
So when I first started working in AI and law, there was very little interest from industry in taking up the academic solutions that were being produced, that were being discussed at conferences. And that has absolutely shifted over the last decade. And that's because the technology has matured. We know that AI is no longer something that's pie in the sky. It's here. We can see it. We can use it. So there's definitely been a shift in attitude. And I think it's been important for Lawtech UK to come together to convene some thinking on that, so that there isn't just disparate activity going on in different parts of the UK. You'll see that Lawtech UK has what we call an ecosystem tracker that was released last year that gives a snapshot of the current state of the market. So if you've got an idea as a startup, you can see if there's a gap that you could jump into, or you can see if somebody else has been developing some similar solutions and what your distinctive USP is. So I think it's played a really important convening role, and also being a voice as well to make sure that we're doing strategic thinking about this and not just working individually.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes back to that collaboration point earlier. And, I just want to drive the AI adoption appetite shift, because, I've been around the world with the podcast, and, I've referenced this many times to people on the show. We're partnering with Clio, obviously the world's largest cloud-based legal technology company. And I remember speaking to Jack Newton, the CEO of the company, and said, Rob, it took 15 years to get cloud adoption from law firms. And some of them really still struggle to move away from bricks and mortar. And he said, the velocity of speed we're going to see with AI, just because there is no choice but to adapt and thrive, otherwise you will probably likely really struggle, is going to be really exciting in the world of legal, and really exciting in the world of legal technology. And that's why we're keen to keep having these conversations, educate people from all different angles, so they have a really good understanding of how to ultimately learn and then take action. So, from a sustainability perspective, because obviously this is a real kind of area of expertise for you, how do you see AI and technology contributing to the sustainability of the legal sector?
So I think you're right. I think people need to get on board with the changes that are happening, and lots of people are. There's so many events that you see now, and I think we're past the stage of just the headlines of somebody saying, oh, we're looking at AI, we're trying these new AI tools. We've now got to the stage where there are tangible impacts that can be seen and can be evidenced. I've worked with some law firms who have AI tools now in use every single day in their business. People are seeing that being evidenced and seeing the benefits, and people are willing to talk about their journeys and what the difficulties were and what the pitfalls were. So there's more of a learning base as well. So I think it's very much a case of the sector getting on board. And it's not just the commercial sector as well. So the courts are talking about modernisation. You'll hear Jeffrey Voss on the Lawtech UK panel really talking about the need for judges to understand AI, to start looking at the tools. And this is happening worldwide as well. So I think it's a real shift in the sector.
Today's episode is brought to you by Clio, the all-in-one legal practice management software designed to help solicitors like you save time, stay organised, and deliver outstanding client experience. Clio is trusted by thousands of legal professionals worldwide, offering a user-friendly interface, seamless time recording, automated billing, and secure cloud storage, so you can manage your practice from anywhere. With Clio, you'll get award-winning support available 24/5 by live chat, phone, and email. So help is always there when you need it most. It's no wonder Clio consistently receives 5-star ratings for its ease of use and top-notch service. If you're ready to experience a better way to manage your practice, visit clio.com/UK to learn more and see why Clio continues to be the go-to choice for solicitors across the UK. Now back to the show. The pandemic was a horrific time for so many people, but I do think that sort of at least put a stake in the ground in terms of, virtual and Zoom, and obviously we're on another level with AI. But I think the courts are going to change. They're going to be unrecognizable to many. My late grandfather, who ran a law firm in 1950s, would not recognize the way that legal services are going to be delivered. But things change, and I think you have to accept that the only constant in any sort of sector is change. And something else that we're hugely passionate about, and we've had presidents of the Law Society, Stephanie Boyce, Lubna Shuja, who are also passionate about this, is access to justice. And so I want to talk about AI and justice. How do you ensure AI is a tool for securing justice in our society today?
So it's a really important point. I'm obviously enthusiastic about the opportunities with the rollout of AI, but I definitely want it to be done in a measured way, so that there's checks and balances, and that there's evaluation of early prototypes to see that they work and that they're open to scrutiny as well, because it's no good having these AI tools if there isn't trust in them by the people who are going to be the users. So there's a lot of talk about efficiencies that can be made with AI tools. A lot of the firms that are out there looking at document automation, trying to get rid of some of the administrative backlogs, that there's different tasks within legal work that can be automated. Obviously, some of the more routine ones are the low-hanging fruit. Some of the more difficult ones, like things like decision support, are going to be much more challenging. But that's why it's really important to have these explainable AI methods that I was talking about earlier. We can't have these black box tools that just spit out an answer and it's not clear how they came to that answer, the data sets that they were trained on. So it's really important for gaining trust that we have that openness and that explainability. And there's an opportunity, if we get this right, for access to justice to be delivered to the citizens as well. We know all around the world there are huge backlogs that have built up in courts. It's taking years for people to get their cases heard. That's not providing the access to justice that we want. So there should be opportunities there with the rollout of AI.
Yeah, and you make a really good point, particularly around what I always say is, if you confuse people, you'll lose people. And I think you're looking for fusion. And like you said there, you want to understand. So then hopefully you get people along the way, the journey. And I think, we're all striving to help improve access to justice. And it's one of the missions we set out here in terms of the Legally Speaking podcast, with the content and thought leaders like yourselves that we have on to all work and collaborate together to work hard to solve that. Because I think it's a huge area that still needs a lot of attention. Okay, let's talk about mentoring. Again, something else we talk a lot about on the show, something I'm a huge advocate for. Why is it important for law firms to be mentored in legal tech specifically? And why is it inherent for law firms to seek mentorship? And why is now the right time?
So it's important because, as we've talked about, the world of law is changing because of the new technologies. So that the people who've been the early adopters, the people who've tried things out, we need to learn lessons from them. Say, okay, what didn't work? We can avoid pitfalls once people have learned what they are. Making this switch to this new technology can be frightening for people as well. So it's really important to build confidence too. So all these new AI tools, like you say, if people aren't used to working in this way, it can be very scary if you're not sure how they work. So mentorship at different levels within organizations is really important for the upskilling piece of current employees, for people who are trying to be disruptors as well. They can learn from others who've been in that field. And why now is because of the explosion that we've seen and the growth in the Lawtech market, and it's only going to continue with the developments that we're expecting to see on AI.
Yeah, and I'm here for exponential growth. I mean, we've had some fascinating CEOs. Had the CEO of Spellbook; they've had a great journey. Obviously, as a reference, Jack Newton. And he mentioned, last year when they did their 900 million raise, the largest of any raise within the. He said this isn't just good for Clio. This is great for legal technology. The PE funds, the big players out there, are really paying attention to legal technology as a viable place to invest and really disrupt. And again, that's super exciting if you're in this area of law. Our tagline for the show is inspiring legal minds, transforming legal futures. And I think technology is going to be a huge part of that. So let's talk about some of your advisory work, because you've been appointed, or were appointed, the Artificial Advisory Board for the European Commission for Efficiency of Justice. You're one of 5 members appointed across Europe to provide expert advice on AI-related issues. In what areas have you been providing advice? Tell us a bit more.
Yes, so obviously I've been talking about what's going on in the academic world. So sometimes what's going on in the academic world doesn't make it through to the products for a number of years. So we can do a little bit of horizon scanning, if you like, advising where the field's likely to be going, what the particular challenges are. There's known challenges with the current generation of generative AI. Everybody's talking about the hallucination problems. Obviously, the big companies are going to be working on trying to resolve those. So we try and do some horizon scanning on what might be coming. It's looking at advising the judiciary on that upskilling piece as well. So everybody doesn't need to go and take coding lessons, but you do need to become familiar with the tools that we're now starting to see rolled out. You've got your co-pilots if you're on the Microsoft ecosystem. So just getting on board with those, and it doesn't have to be some big AI project that's coming in to take over all the human work. It's very much in that supportive role. I know you've talked about this on previous episodes of this podcast, so getting that message out as well, that using AI in a supporting role.
Yeah, absolutely. And I forget who said the quote, but AI should be seen as a workforce multiplier. And I love that. You think about that, how it can really help enhance things. So, but there are always, with change, with everything going on, there's a lot of considerations, particularly because our audience is in the legal world, extra considerations. So, what are some of the most pressing AI-related challenges the European judicial system is facing, and how do you ensure the ethical considerations are at the forefront when advising AI and indeed the judiciary?
So I think that trustworthiness issue, so making sure that any tools that are being trialed are done so in a way where their impact has been thought about, where there's documented evidence of what worked, what didn't work. There's iteration if anything didn't work as well. So it's making sure that there's a measured approach to rollout, embracing these technologies, making sure you understand what they do, what you can do and what you can't do. So that policy and governance framework is key as well. So that there's new laws coming in. There's the AI Act that's in place in Europe to make sure that everybody's aware of their responsibilities when they're rolling out AI systems, looking at high risk ones differently to low risk ones. So it's making sure that there's understanding of what's possible, what's not possible, and how to operate within the policy and governance framework.
Yeah, no, so well said, and thank you for sharing that, and indeed all the work you're doing. I would say to go above and beyond, and again, that's why we're really keen to have this conversation today. So let's look at opportunities. We're always full of the glass half full approach over here. So how can those in the legal profession champion more opportunities for females who are interested in technology, AI, and automation?
Back to that mentorship question that we talked about. So, if you've been successful, or perhaps if you haven't been, if you've had some stumbling blocks along the way, it can be difficult for people to talk about, the failures, things that didn't go right. But that's so important to pass that knowledge on to the next generation. So getting involved in mentorship programs, asking your colleagues to get involved in mentorship programs as well. Putting on opportunities for people to dip their toe in the water. If somebody's got an interest in this but might not be feeling confident, provide an opportunity to get them involved. Put on some training, look up some training courses that they can go to, and be open and inclusive with those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very important point. And, I always say once you reach teach, and to individuals, you should always have your 360 board of mentors as well. Ideally, people above you, people at the same level, and people actually beneath you. And I get so much of my wisdom, particularly from the tech and some of the social media and marketing strategies from the next generation, because that's where the attention is, in terms of some of these channels and understanding algorithms and things like that. So, I'm a big advocate for having your own 360 board of mentors around you. Okay, the future. I don't know what the future, means these days with things moving so fast. I mean, tomorrow is the future, isn't it, in terms of the speed of AI and its exponential developments. But sort of future of AI, how do you envisage AI evolving in the legal space in the next few years? I think 10 years is just too impossible to predict. But what developments in AI for the legal sector can we look forward to?
I think adoption is the key now. So previously it was about people testing the waters, looking at collaboration, looking at some piloting. I think we're beyond that now. So there's the tools that I mentioned that are becoming available just for the operational day-to-day assistance. And then there's the more tailored ones that help with specific legal tasks. So whether that's something that you do with one of the large companies, whether it's something that you do in a specific collaboration with one of the startups, or whether it's something you do with some academics, I think adoption is going to be key. And I think people are no longer going to be frightened to test things out, because if you don't, then you are going to be left behind, because so many places are doing it. We have innovation departments, we have machine learning engineers, we have data scientists embedded in law firms now, small and large. It used to be just the large ones with the deep pockets, but it's not anymore. Yep. It's the small ones as well. So I think adoption and rollout is going to be key.
And I think you make a good point there as well about accessibility of services. Like you said, historically, the larger firms with these deep pockets could be hugely sort of powerful. Now I feel like with some of these tools and some of these subscription-based, tools that are available, it can help level the playing field to some extent, which is exciting. Okay, let's look at sort of some final thoughts and pieces of advice for those that are currently in the legal profession. Perhaps they're practicing the law. What advice would you give them to perhaps get more educated around the world of technology and legal technology? Because I feel like there is a gap for those who are head down, billable hour, working on the job. And sometimes you have to lift your head up to understand what's going to mean for your future career and where's it going. So firstly, what would be your piece of advice for those currently practicing the law that perhaps haven't been paying as much attention to law and technology? And what would you say to them to help them?
So carving out time for your own professional development is really important, no matter what industry you work in. Yep. Technology is going to change the legal industry so much. So I think just, carving out some time to, do some entry-level courses. There's so much out there that's available now just to start you on that journey. And then you can delve deeper into the aspects that you're more interested about. Find out what's going on in your own company. As I said, the adoption is really increasing, so it's likely that companies are looking at this more and more. So talking to other teams, carving out time for professional development, and just keeping abreast of what's going on in the field through podcasts like this. Yeah. You can hear what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you hopefully people listening to this are passionate about their career and want to future-proof their career. And so, making the time, time is always available if it's important enough to you. So if your career is important to you, then you will make the time, even if that's 15 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. It's better than nothing. Okay, and then let's look at the next generation coming through before we wrap up. What advice would you give to students particularly interested in pursuing a career in technology and the law? Because it'll be very different to many moons ago. What's the sort of advice for now?
So I think universities are recognising that this is changing, and they can't just keep their traditional courses on law. At the University of Liverpool, we've got a module on the future of legal services and how AI is going to be changing that. So I'd make sure that you're looking at those courses, are taking an interest in what's going on in that field. Like I said, again, doesn't have to be taking the coding classes or anything, but be aware of what tools, what technologies are out there. Look at the different roles that are being organised as well. So people who can speak across different teams, there's going to be jobs for them in the future. I've done collaborations with law firms where there's academics working with the IT teams and working with the lawyers in that interdisciplinary collaborative setting again. So I think making sure that you've got the professional skills to speak across those boundaries as well as having your finger on the pulse of what the developments are is going to be really important.
Yeah, and this has been a hugely fascinating discussion. Time just flies when, I feel like I always come to every episode as a student, and I enjoy that as a podcast host, and hopefully come away a little bit wiser. And I'm definitely coming away a lot wiser today, and I'm sure our listeners are too. And if they want to follow you or indeed learn more about your career or indeed Lawtech UK, where can they go to find out more? Feel free to shout out any website links or any social media handles. We'll also ensure we share them with this very special episode for you too.
Yeah, Lawtech UK website, just type it into Google. That will be the first place that you hit. You can see what's going on in the whole ecosystem. You can see the education programs that are there. So that's with my Lawtech UK hat on. You can find me on LinkedIn and all the work that I do there as well for a more personal view on what I'm working on.
Well, it just leaves me to say thank you so much once again, Katie. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. So from all of us on the Legally Speaking podcast, sponsored by Clio, wishing you lots of continued success with your career and indeed future legal related pursuits. But for now, over and out.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you like the content here, why not check out our world-leading content and collaboration hub, the Legally Speaking Club, over on Discord. Go to our website, www.legallyspeakingpodcast.com, for the link to join our community there. Over and out.